Dragon's Rising Season 3 Part 2 has introduced us finally to the realm or the land of Lee, or more specifically, Lee himself. And honestly, he has caused a lot of debate when it comes down to it. And that's because Lee in of himself is a bit of an enigma. He is a bit of a unique case. There's not really another being like Lee. And the thing is that we don't really get an outright explanation on what Lee truly is. And honestly, I've had a lot of different ideas when it does come down to it, and I've tried to answer a lot of different questions when it does come to Lee. Because I do think he is really fascinating, and definitely one of the best parts that came from Dragon's Rising. Honestly, he is a fascinating case, but I do officially think I have a better idea on what Lee truly is, and I want to know your opinion on it. So today we're gonna delve into the land of Lee, and more specifically Lee himself, and answer a begging question, which is what truly is Lee? To truly understand that though, we need to go back a little bit and ask, who is Lee? He is the first and the only native inhabitant of the land of Lee, and he has the ability to have multiple different bodies, and he is later on the leader of the community of Lee, which is an artificial neighborhood where he manipulated various displaced beings from among the merged realms to become companions in his utopia. He is just by nature a very simple being. He just doesn't really have too much of a purpose outside of the fact that he just wanted to have fun. He wanted to please other people, and when he was on his own for so long, he just grew to want company of others. But here's the thing, behind that very deceiving, innocent smile of his, he is a very powerful being. Like I said, he has the ability to make copies of himself, and that's not the only thing he can necessarily do. He has this state of mitosis, which is fairly good, but it's also a hive mind. Lee in of himself shares one singular consciousness. He has a multi-presence. Every single Lee is Lee. It is confirmed that if one Lee knows something, all Lees know something, and honestly, that is a very impressive ability in of itself. What makes it even more interesting is the fact that even though it is a hive mind consciousness and it's all one Lee, he is completely capable of multitasking. All the different Lees are fully able to do whatever they need to do when it does come down to it. They can act on their own while also still being Lee. But the thing is, they can all merge together at the exact same time, because we can see that they can form different objects when it does come to Lee. For example, he made a giant fist with no hesitance whatsoever. So even though by all accounts the Lees can act independently, they also come together really like the hive mind. It's a truly terrifying skill set. But that does lead into the first question of what Lee truly is. What species actually is Lee? The thing is that he comes across very deceptive. He looks human, he looks like your standard inhabitant, he could blend right into Ninjago, when in reality, he's anything but. We were confirmed that he is not an elemental master, so his abilities also does come from something else, and I do have a vague idea on what he could truly be. He is some sort of higher form of being. I feel like that is quite easy to say. He's not on the level of the first Spinjitzu master, he's not on the level of, say, the Oni and the Dragon. I don't even think he's as powerful as a Jin. I just simply think he is something on the level of the preeminent. And this honestly does come down to a couple of different factors. The first thing is the fact that the preeminent is the living embodiment of the cursed realm in of itself. The preeminent is the cursed realm, and I think in similar vein, Lee is the land of Lee, or the realm of Lee more specifically. It's the fact that the realm or the land itself doesn't seem to actually have too much power inherently. It just seems to be some sort of barren waste. It seems to be that Lee is the one that truly has all the power. Take Lee out of the realm of Lee and you have nothing left. So Lee is clearly some sort of incarnation of what the realm truly is. And the other thing for me is the fact that every single realm is reliant on balance. Balance is a very big theme within the show of Ninjago in of itself. And the thing is that we don't actually have an equal and opposite to the preeminent as it currently stands. So if one realm has the embodiment of that realm in existence, it would make sense that there is an opposite to that as well. If there is a dark side, which is the preeminent, there needs to be a light side as well. Because Lee is not exactly a villain. He just simply wanted friends. So it makes sense to believe that there is a good embodiment of the realm, whilst there's also a bad embodiment of the realm. They counter each other, and that is why I think they're on the same level. It, in my opinion, does make the most sense when you look at the scale of the species within Ninjago. The thing is that we don't have an outright, here's the most powerful species and here's the least powerful species, because there's so many different caveats that go into that question. But the thing is that Lee definitely has to be up there. He has to have some sort of intense ability because, like I said, he is not an elemental master. So it makes sense to put him on that level because, simply put, it's just kind of where he fits. But with what Lee is out of the way, it does bring on a very different question that was asked within Ninjago itself, and that is the question of the consequences when it does come to hurting a Lee. Jay asks that very question: what happens if you kill one of Lee's bodies? Because it is a very interesting concept that never actually gets answered. There are two notable things that happen that hurt Lee in some way, shape or form in Season 3 Part 2. He both gets hollowed and Jay does attempt to kill him, and I'm going to explain what would happen considering both things actually happening in the first place. So I'm going to separate Lee into two different categories: the base Lee, or the prime Lee, the original Lee, which I'm going to refer to as Root Lee, and then you have got all the extensions of Lee, or the clones of Lee, which I'm going to refer to as the branch Lees. First off is hollowing. I considered initially that for a minute, if you hollowed a branch Lee, it may not actually affect Root Lee, but it has been pointed out to me that they do all share the exact same soul. So I do think for the most part, whether or not you hollow Root Lee or branch Lee, it doesn't really make a difference. It's all still Lee. One Lee is all Lees in that instance. But personally speaking, I do reckon it was Root Lee that was initially hollowed. The killing of a Lee is the more important factor to me, and I do think it is a very interesting concept nonetheless, because a lot of people have considered maybe the idea that Lee in of himself is immortal, and I do think he ages differently to a standard human, but I don't necessarily think he is. I do think he is susceptible to death, just not in the way that you may expect. For one, if you kill Root Lee, Lee's dead. Like, Lee is officially dead. I think if you do attempt to kill Lee and you're successful, say if Jay used one of his energy blades on Lee, I do think it would kill Lee, and all the branch Lees would be gone in accordance. But I do think if Jay did kill a branch Lee, I do think it wouldn't actually kill Root Lee. I do think if an extension of Lee was killed, I would just think it would simply hurt the Root Lee. The reason I'm using this terminology is to use this example now. If you have a tree, if you snap off a branch, the tree will still live. However, if you cut the root out of the tree, all the branches will go down with it. And I do think that is Lee to an extent. I just think it makes no sense if one Lee was killed, all Lees were killed, it would be the case. Because Lee is just too powerful of a being to have that kind of weakness. I just simply believe that Lee at no point would have been able to never have any version of Lee be killed by something else. And again, I do think this rounds back down to the nature of what Lee truly is. I think the analogy that Lee in of himself is a tree is a very interesting aspect, because he in of himself is the root of a whole load of different Lees who are all capable of many different things, and all those branches, all those extensions of Lees goes into what he is, which is just a construct of nature. But with the question of his species, who he is, what he is, and what happens when he got hollowed, and also what would happen if he got killed out of the way, I really do think Lee on an overall is a very fascinating creature. I do think he is very interesting with a lot of unanswered questions, and I really do hope Dragon's Rising does go back to him, because I feel like you could answer a lot about what he truly is, and I would be very interested to know the answer, because I don't think I'm on the wrong opinion here when I say he's one of the most fascinating things from the entirety of the show. I think Lee is just a remarkable being. I just think he has so much about him that is interesting, and there is so much I still haven't even covered. Like I said, I do think he is the embodiment of the realm or the land of Lee in of himself, but it doesn't necessarily explain where he came from. I just simply think though he just came to be, but I would like more of an official explanation on it. But the thing is that there is still just so much to answer about him, and I would love to know what your theories are when it does come to Lee as well, because I think he is fascinating. I think there is still so much potential with Lee, and like I said, I do hope we go back to him. But I want to officially pass it off to you guys like always. I want to know, do you agree with my theories? Do you agree with my idea on his species and what would happen depending on the situation? Do you believe what I have come to believe when it comes to Lee? Or do you have a different theory overall? I would love to know because I am fascinated by Lee. I have spent, since the release of Season 3 Part 2, just pondering the existence of Lee, and I don't think I'm going to stop anytime soon. But like I said, I would absolutely love to know what your opinion on Lee is, because I would love to get an answer on him one day, and I can only hope that Dragon's Rising does go back to him someday as well. But that is about it for today, you guys, and thank you very much for watching. And if you did enjoy the theory, please consider subscribing. I never usually say that and I hate it, but apparently it makes a difference. But yeah, take care guys. Okay, bye!